Walter Nolan has committed to your Ole Miss Rebels. Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the instant overreaction to that commitment on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I hope everybody is having a Merry Christmas Eve, and you're going to have a Merry Christmas as well. But this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, I am Stephen Willis, and I am likely the only person you're going to hear from today that is probably live streaming even at all because it's Christmas Eve and everybody's at home with their families. And hey, I respect all of that, but I wanted to do an instant overreaction because this is a big, big fish that Ole Miss just got committed. Walter Nolan has committed to the Ole Miss Rebels, leading Ole Miss to a potentially the best defensive line in college football. All of the stuff that we've been talking about Ole Miss making a run in 2024 was about Ole Miss having the best defensive line in football, and Walter Nolan is a big piece of that. Now, if you look at who Ole Miss has recruited, who they've brought in, the extra players that are coming in to help, the returnees, Ole Miss was already in good shape. And then you add Princely Amonmielen. You add Tyler Barron. You add Walter Nolan to go alongside J.J. Pegues, and that is a front four on the defensive line that nobody wants to trifle with moving forward. Not a single person wants to trifle with moving forward. It's going to allow Chris Paul and Satarian Perkins and TJ Dudley and those guys at linebacker to scrape, and they could be a different type playmaker. Everybody that is getting super excited about Ole Miss football right now, really, there's nothing else you can do. The ceiling is being raised, it seems like, every week with Ole Miss football at the moment. And I'm just personally excited about where they're going to potentially go. Everybody's like, hey, Steve, what does this remind you of? Ole Miss is using free agent effectively to try and improve their ceiling, improve their lot. What does it look like? And I was like, it's not what Deion was doing. Deion's looking to try and get competitive. They were a one-win team when he got there. They won 4 this year. They're going to win games, but they're relying extensively on the transfer portal more so than high school recruiting. Ole Miss isn't really doing that. Ole Miss really hit the trenches pretty hard in high school recruiting and had really good classes in high school recruiting. What Ole Miss is doing is using the transfer portal to bring in starters from SEC level teams to their program that is going to change the look. They're going to change their aggressiveness. And here's the thing. I know everybody's saying, and I guarantee you something in the comment right now. It's like, don't talk about national championship until Ole Miss signs more offensive linemen. And look, I get it. I get all that. But this defense has gone from Ole Miss giving up 23 points a game to Ole Miss giving up 16 a game. That is the swing they've made, which means the offense, they're pretty set where they were. Now, Ole Miss needs to replace Victor Kearney. They need to replace Quincy McGee, and they might have done that with just once John Scott. Percy Lewis is a potential after the new year. But if you look at what Ole Miss can do offensively, they have an offense that matches up favorably with what this defense could be and the way they like to run the football. It might change stylistically how Ole Miss football looks offensively next year, because Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin can legitimately play to a defense that is potentially the top in the SEC and the top in college football. That is going to change the way that you play offense. And I'm very, very excited about it. And I'm going to do a Christmas morning show that is going to be a lot of this Walter Nolan talk. We're going to continue that. We're going to get into what we learned about Ole Miss's football program going into Christmas and get ready for game week broadcast. And next Friday is media day at the Under Armour All-American game. I'm going to be there talking to the Ole Miss players in attendance. And I will be at practice on Sunday. Obviously, we'll have game day coverage on Saturday. So that's what this weekend coming up looks like for Locked On Ole Miss. Let's go into the chat. And don't forget in the chat, to put where you're writing from. I want to know where you're watching the show from, where you're listening from. I do want you to put that into the chat so we know what's going on. Everybody should be excited. It's one of those things that I've said over and over and over again. If you can't be excited right now about Ole Miss football, I don't think you can be excited. I don't think you can be excited. Anyway, let's see what's going on in the chat right now. We're a little bit behind because people have been commenting all over so far. You got James Mendoza, playoffs 2024. Here we come. Now we can stop living in Twitter land. That is actually a good thing. If we're not in Twitter all the time, we've been waiting for that Walter Nolan announcement for a while, which, by the way, Walter Nolan committed in less times than the Juice Wells did. Just pointing that out. Squeeze Liberal says, I present the 2024 national champions. Chris Wilson says, hotty toddy and Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas, Chris. Hope it is a good one. Grind City Flip says LFG. David Oswald is hotty freaking toddy. MXWE says Merry Christmas. I'm telling you, this is the merriest of Christmas, and I do appreciate that it came out. It should be really fun. Gage says, let's go, Steven. Thank you, Gage. Wade Bell says, hey, hell yeah. Also, thank you to the Facebook user. It says, Merry Christmas to us all, from Brandon Martin in Tupelo. So if you're commenting on Facebook, leave your name in there because for whatever reason, it doesn't populate that way. So thank you very much, Brandon, for doing that. G210 Man says, it is time. Cameron says Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding are like Mike MJ and Pippen in the 90s when it comes to portal recruiting. Yeah, it's just a machine, an absolute machine right now in Ole Miss football. I'm very fired up about the direction it's going. Bradley Voyle says, hotty toddy, go Rebels, number one defensive line in the country. Let's go win a national championship. Exactly. James York says, hell yeah. G210 Man says, hotty toddy from San Antonio. Mike Vandergriff says, finally, we are going to be hard to beat. We're going to be very hard to beat. We're going to be somebody that keeps coaches up at night. And this was already a 10-win team. This thing just went to another level with the commitment of Walter Nolan. Really big signing. Jeff Ferguson said, absolutely wonderful. David Oswald, the Rebs are going to be extremely hard to beat next year. We just talked about that a little bit. Billy Jones, if we win this bowl game, we're going to be preseason for the top 5. Yeah, and this is an important bowl game for that. Now, I don't think if Ole Miss loses this game, it's going to affect them in any way other than preseason projection going into next season. But we want that preseason projection. We want Ole Miss to be on the front of every prognostication that is out there as a top 5 team because you'll have more margin of error. For real or not, it's something that's going to be kind of a big deal. Clyde says, right now, I'm crying right now. This happened. Wow. Hotty toddy, Walter Natty to Ole Miss. Very good. Clyde says, yes, we are back. And he is very fired up about that. Facebook user says, we may get Stone Blanton too. Merry Christmas, Stephen. Now, this one I'm interested about. And I wanted Walter Nolan first. And honestly, I just wanted this Walter Nolan stuff. It needed to reach its conclusion because it got to the point where everybody was saying that Walter Nolan was going to Ole Miss. You weren't hearing about any other schools. All it was waiting on an announcement. And like I said, it was probably simple enough of waiting as a day to do it and to get your graphic back and all of that stuff. But Stone Blanton is an interesting situation. Now, Ole Miss has TJ Dudley already. They have Chris Paul already. Chris Paul is best linebacker in the portal. And even after Stone Blanton got in, Chris Paul would probably be ahead of that list. But Stone Blanton is a good football player. He's from MRA, Madison Ridgeland Academy. I believe they're the Patriots, or maybe that was Jackson Prep. I do not know. My MAIS schools and knowledge is not as good as it needs to be. But my understanding, if you look online and everybody has stories about Ole Miss and Stone Blanton, and it ranges about 13 different ways. So all I'm going to say on that one is Stone Blanton's brother, I think, goes to Ole Miss, but this one needs to be allowed to play out a little bit because there's kind of too many stories out there right now that I know exactly what's going on. So I'm not as confident about Stone Blanton as others might be, but it could happen. I could just be wrong on this situation. Jerry Moore, hotty toddy from Pascagoula, Mississippi. Clyde is very jacked up today. Let's go. Tony Pierce says, oh, it's on now. It absolutely is. PTG Brandon, hotty toddy. I don't think we're done. We're definitely not done. And Mark Penna says, love it. And we all love it. And DJ Jam is a Pete Golding masterclass on his. Clyde is, like I said, he is fired up. I love this. This is amazing. Chris Wilson says, hotty toddy and Merry Christmas, Stephen from Hernando County, Florida. Merry Christmas, Chris. Merry Christmas indeed. Any chance of a white Christmas is not likely down here, but that's okay. It's actually like 70 degrees outside right now, and it's chilly, and it kind of feels like Christmas back home a little bit. Jacob Holloway, who are we getting next? My guess, and this is just guess, I think Percy Lewis is probably the next name that is going to pop, the offensive lineman out of Mississippi State. Pay attention to that as well. Clyde says, I believe our quarterbacks come back. Yes, they do. Dead Soxy, hotty toddy. It's a special time to be a rebel. Remember, go to deadsoxy.com. You can pick up a pair of socks just like this. Just like this, you can pick up the pair of socks, or you can pick out the box of the NIL subscription as well. Pretty good indeed. We're about to be joined by Mr. Brad Logan to talk about exactly what this means. And I'm pretty fired up about that as well. Hey, Brad, how are you doing? We're on the air, buddy.
Yeah, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're listening. I guess it is good afternoon. It's been a wild hour and a half, and it's like nothing I've ever seen. And I think we learned shortly after the coaches knew. And so everyone's kind of waiting. And I did learn that the main reason that we've been waiting is the NIL paperwork was dotted today. And that's what led to the coaching staff kind of breaking it out. And then also, I think more than anything, hearing it from Hayes Fawcett from On3, he broke the news, and it kind of went from there. The graphic comes out, and Walter Nolen is a rebel. Now that is behind everybody, you start looking about what does that mean? And it means that Ole Miss is one step forward to play for a national championship next year. It's yet another spoke in the wheel, if you will, of another opportunity to play in the national championship or play for a national championship. What we're seeing here, Stephen, in my opinion, is Lane Kiffin took over a program and was given the opportunity by Keith Carter. When that happened, I think Lane was like, okay, we'll see what happens. We'll recruit. He's kind of the forefront of a lot. We're now seeing that he is at the forefront of the transfer portal. Now what we're seeing is Lane Kiffin believing not only in himself, but believing in the Ole Miss program, believing in the fans, believing in the players, believing in the collective. And it took all of you watching. It took Walker Jones and his team. It took the athletic department as a whole. It took the sponsors. It took people believing. And, not being hyperbolic because we're at the Christmas season of believing, but it took all of those components working in one direction. And what we're seeing now is the fruits of your labor, of Lane Kiffin's labor, and of the football team's labor. And we're seeing it come before us. Now, sure, I mean, you have to put all these pieces together, and you have to implement those. But at the end of the day, when it's 4th and 14, 3rd and 21, you have to get a stop. Now you've got the number one player in the country that came out of high school, the number one player in the transfer portal. He's going to be wearing red and blue. And at the end of the day, that's a monster day for Ole Miss.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think of to what Ole Miss's defensive line now might be the best defensive line in the country if you look at it. You have Walter Nolan, who is just a game wrecker, and he's going to require a double team, or he will completely wreck your game plan altogether. JJ Pegues is honestly one of those pieces as well. He's more of a Robin than a Batman, but he is a supremely talented football player. and he is going to require a double team as well. Simple math. I'm from Simpson County, Mississippi, Brad. But when double teams are happening on J.J. Pegues and Walter Nolen, that means Princely Amon-Mielen is going to get a single up against an offensive lineman potentially, or a tight end, and Jared Ivey or Tyler Barron is going to get a single block as well, which means the cornerbacks, the defensive backs do not have to cover as long. The linebackers don't have to deal with as many linemen that is sitting on them. Overall, the defense is just going to be so much better, and you're going to have a situation where the quarterback, instead of having 2.5 seconds to throw the ball, he might have 1.5 seconds to throw the football. And that's the thing.
It is. And it's one thing to say that you go to the portal to get depth and to get, certain pieces, and I get that. What Ole Miss has done in the transfer portal is not get depth. They've got instant starters. They've got instant plug-and-play guys. You talked about Amon-Mielen, who's going to be an immediate player. Pooh Paul, who is going to be an immediate player on that defense. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about Key Lawrence and how big of a piece that was that Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding have got on this team. So I think let's fast forward again. Let's look at the schedule for next year. By removing Alabama and Auburn, sure, you've got Georgia, you've got Oklahoma, but those two pieces going out, and then you've got a couple of new pieces coming in. You got Georgia on campus, which could be or will be the biggest game. I have a feeling, Steve, we're going to be talking about the biggest game in program history a lot next year.
Yeah.
And people get too bogged down in, Ole Miss doesn't play well in Fayetteville, or Ole Miss doesn't play well at LSU. Here's the thing. You don't have to go undefeated anymore. There is a possibility that Ole Miss goes 10-2 and goes on the road in the playoffs. That's a good possibility. But how about if this team goes 11-1? Another component of what happens down the road. So the schedule next year versus the pieces that have been put together and then the transfer portal, this haul. And I don't think it's being, too extravagant by saying this is the number one recruiting class in the transfer portal in the country. I think they're going to catapult Colorado. The last ranking I saw from 247 Sports was that Ole Miss was in second place. I expect them to jump over Colorado. So, once again, on paper, the best recruiting class in the country in the transfer portal. One more thing I want to point out. There's been some talk amongst some that are saying that this is imaginary money. This is no way that Ole Miss has the finances to put together an NIL package for a number of players throughout the country, and there's no way that they can afford this roster. Let me go ahead and stop you. Ole Miss absolutely has the financing for this. I know for a fact. Ole Miss has people that are buying into the program. They're making arrangements that Ole Miss has one of the most competitive football teams in the country. So if you hear Ole Miss fans, anyone say that Ole Miss does not have the financing, this is imaginary money from the NIL, that's simply not the case.
Yeah, it's almost projection. Generally, the people that are struggling, they're playing catch up with NIL and the collectives and all of that stuff. They can't fathom how Ole Miss has an 8-figure collective right now, plus other boosters that want to help on top of that. And whenever you have that and everybody, like you said, pulling the rope in the same directions, this is kind of the type of stuff that can happen.
It's a big day. And now I think for Ole Miss, you turn the page, so to speak, towards the Peach Bowl, but you can do so with a lot of momentum going into the offseason. I think more people, Stephen, now are looking forward to spring practice more than any time in program history as well. And look, let's not overshoot what Ole Miss has coming back in a roster perspective. The players coming back, I mean, that alone was going to be a really good football team. Now with the transfer portal additions, this puts this team from a really good team to a great team. And I think if we look at where Ole Miss is roster-wise, no attrition whatsoever. It's going to be a lot of fun to cover this and to see where this team goes next year. But I don't think you can say enough about a couple of people. Number one, obviously, Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding from the way they recruited the portal. But I think you have to tip your hat to Walker Jones and how well this collective has worked in conjunction with the university, in conjunction with not necessarily the university, but with the donor base of the university. worked in conjunction there, and just how well they've done monitoring this, how well they've done generating funds for this, and how well they've done just masterminding this. It's really, really phenomenal to watch. And I think, 3, you have to thank the donors of this Ole Miss football program that have supported this team, and not just the donors a part of the Grove Collective NIL. I'm talking about the donors that support the Champions Now as well. From a university standpoint, athletic standpoint, the good folks at the foundation and Denson Hollis, how well they have adapted on the fly. Look, the moment the Sugar Bowl was over, the college football world was turned upside down. Ole Miss just unveils an incredible addition to Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, complete renovation to the western side. In total, I think, Stephen, $250 million was going to be the Champions Now. What happens? They completely reverse and adapt. Sure, they're continuing. I think we had Keith Carter on our podcast, and the Champions Now initiative is going really well. But they completely changed the dynamic of Ole Miss athletics, predominantly football, because that is the breadwinner of the university. So when they completely adapted, Ole Miss went to work. And now, a couple of years later, we're looking at the 24 season as Ole Miss having an opportunity to play for a national championship. And that is not something that you're throwing against the wall to see if it sticks. That's just the truth.
All right. So Walter Nolan's in the boat. He's committed. Now, as a fan watching this, their question is, who's next? What's some names that we need to watch right now?
I don't know. We saw the talented linebacker for South Carolina get in the portal, Stone Blanton, and there's been a little bit of talk about Stone, but mostly judging by the fact is Ole Miss really went after Stone, but it was too late. You know, he had already kind of kicked the can down the road with South Carolina, and he's a really good linebacker. I don't know if Ole Miss offers here. I do think Mississippi State's obviously a spot that Stone could land. You know, we saw what Jed Johnson did in that Bulldog defense and how well he played. And Stone Blanton could be a player that jumps in and plays immediately for Mississippi State. So we'll see. Other than that, you're kind of looking at that new window. You're also looking at the new high school window, not the new one, but the original high school window. We'll see who's in play there. But I think you're looking to see what Stonka Burnside does for the Under Armour All-American game. And I expect he's going to choose Mississippi State, to be honest with you. But I think it is worth monitoring if you're an Ole Miss fan to see if there's, something happens between now and then. But I expect he'll sign with Mississippi State. But I think, too, you're looking to see what happens in the transfer portal with offensive linemen. I do not think Ole Miss is finished. I expect Ole Miss to get 2 offensive linemen, maybe 3 out of the portal. And I think there's a good opportunity. One player that's in the portal right now is a Percy Lewis. He's a transfer out of Mississippi State. Originally was at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. Ole Miss went toe-to-toe with Mississippi State a couple of years ago, and the Bulldogs was able to land Lewis. Now he's back into the portal. I expect Ole Miss has a lot of interest there. Secondly, I expect Ole Miss to go after a couple more offensive linemen. And depending on who else pops in the portal, so even if it's another wide receiver, I don't know where they're going to play. We saw a wide receiver out of Florida Atlantic commit, I think it was last night, and, a big play wide receiver. I don't know where they're going to play.
Yeah, that felt like a Walter Nolan add-on. Honestly.
It could be. But I will say this about the young man. His dad, Terry Price, recently passed away. Was a great coach at Ole Miss under Coach Tommy Tuberville. So it's great to see that young man's able to come back and play where his dad coached at one point. So we'll wish him nothing but the best. But yeah, I think you're looking to see what happens with Burnside. You're looking to see what happens with a couple of offensive linemen. But if you're asking me who's next, I think Percy Lewis eventually commits to Ole Miss and becomes an Ole Miss Rebel.
All right. When are you heading over to Atlanta? When do you leave?
Well, originally I was going to go on Friday. Now I'm going to go on Thursday. So I'll be there for the press conference between both James Franklin and Lane Kiffin Friday morning from the Westin Hotel. So I'll have full coverage there, and then we'll have full coverage from the pep rally on Friday night, and then, of course, game day coverage all day on Saturday.
Yeah, Friday is Under Armour All-American Game Media Day. I'll be at that game interviewing Ole Miss players. And the next day is football game coverage, obviously. And then the next day I'll go to Under Armour practice is my plan for this weekend.
And now it's flipping the switch over to the Peach Bowl, kind of monitoring Percy Lewis to see what happens with him, and then seeing what might happen in the portal. But monumental day for Ole Miss. Walter Nolen has committed to Ole Miss. He'll be an Ole Miss Rebel, and Ole Miss has their eyes on the prize for next year, their first national championship. It's a big day to be an Ole Miss fan.
Yeah, absolutely big. And thank you very much, Brad. And I'll talk to you next week, buddy.
All right.
All right, Brad Logan from Inside the Rebels, Logan Media Group, the Red and Blue Crew podcast, all of that stuff. Brad Logan joining the show. We're going to do comments a little bit more before we get out of here. Donnie Weiberg says, Nolan beast mode. Glad we were able to sign him. Merry Christmas, Steve, to you and yours. Hottie Roddy from Largo, Florida. I'm sure you meant Hottie Toddy. Joey, yeah, we got emojicons. David Clark's from Philadelphia, Mississippi. Clyde is listening from Water Valley, Mississippi. I do think I for some reason, I think they're the Blue Devils. I do not know why. Winter Haven is the Blue Devils where I live now. That's one of the reasons it's stuck in my head. Iuka, Mississippi. Bradley Voice. This is the best team I've ever seen Ole Miss have. 12-0. Donnie Wahlberg, Hottie Toddy, geesh. Billy Jones is watching from Meridian. Joey Freeman says we are going to need a bigger boat. Colton Poe is from Pontotoc, Mississippi. Dead Soxy is in Dallas, Texas. John Dawkins is from Sumrall. Kevin Jordan is from Dallas, Texas. Dallas representing a little bit. Brian's in from Grenada, Mississippi. He says, Hottie freaking Toddy. PTG Brandon is from Teoc, Mississippi. Love that name. We Hottie Toddy from Tupelo, Mississippi. David Oswalt is from Smithville, Mississippi. David Clark says Hottie Toddy as well. Trey Birch from Vicksburg. See my mom? Tell her hi and Merry Christmas if you would. TV, nothing like an early Christmas present. Todd from Flowood, Mississippi. Hunter Ming from Louisville, Mississippi. I'm glad it's over. He's actually on our Discord at the moment as well. He is a very much waiting on the other shooter drop type fan that we learned about last night. But as you can see, Hunter, everything worked out. Appreciate you being here, buddy. Jay Lewis says, let's go. Hottie Toddy Steve. I will say this defense looks scary. Yeah, it's the top defensive line in college football. And whenever you add the pieces that they add, it's something pretty special. Mississippi State message boards are in shambles right now. One of the best Christmas gifts I could have hoped for. Kevin is from Flowood, Mississippi, HYDR. Clyde's in Water Valley, as we talked about earlier. AJ Gardner says, I will now put our D-line against any in the country. Incredibly deep and talented. HYDR from New Orleans. Jesse Quillen, another great day to be a rebel. Hottie Toddy from Enterprise, Alabama. Grind City Flip says, I appreciate you taking the time to do this on Christmas Eve. No problem at all. I was going to live stream when Walter Nolan committed. If it was on Christmas Day, I was going to be here doing this. Walter Nolan not only took the D-line to a new level, but the linebackers as well. Bubba Porter from Greenwood, Mississippi. Whatever Walker Jones is paid isn't enough. Mike H. Very true. Walker's doing a fantastic job. Sean Neeson, Brandon, Mississippi. Been living in the moment since September, and it has been an amazing ride. Hottie Toddy. Thomas Sumrall. Merry Christmas from Gainesville. Hottie Toddy. Finally, I can leave X again. Yeah, everybody can kind of get off Twitter watch now that Walter Nolan has committed. You can enjoy your Christmas day. John Dawkins, HYDR. Harold Gore from Madison, Mississippi. Go Ole Miss. Brent Wells. Hey, Bama. I know you thought you wouldn't see us next year, but I look forward to seeing you in the championship game. Hello from Birmingham, Alabama. David Clark, I hope Burnside realizes that Mississippi State is 2 or 3 years behind Ole Miss becoming elite as Ole Miss picks Ole Miss. Mississippi State is not 2.5 to 3 years of becoming elite. They're just behind Ole Miss. Larry Richardson says it's a great time to be a rebel from Columbus, Mississippi. 2024 TCB. CC from Tupelo, HYDR. What about Steve Blanton kid? I'm sure he meant Stone Blanton. We talked about him just a little bit earlier. William Robertson says, heck of a Christmas present, Hottie Toddy from Gulfport, Mississippi. Absolutely amazing Christmas present from Gulfport, Mississippi. Jeff Ferguson from Pontotoc, Mississippi. Ole Miss is ready to win it all. Merry Christmas. Everybody can have a fantastic Christmas this year as well. Brett Walters, there it is. Need more O-line. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Eli Bryson, Feed Me Kirby. I don't know what that means. Feed Me Kirby. Matthew Mitchell, oh my God, it happened. Brian Reeves, Hottie Toddy, Merry Christmas from Amory, Mississippi. Lloyd Gray, Ole Miss has one problem. They have Pete Golding as the DC. I disagree. That is a positive. Mary Nolan, miss everyone from TRYX. Everything for Dante, OMGGG. Yeah, it's nuts. It's happening. It feels pretty real right now. Hottie Toddy from Cumming, Georgia. Where do you see the Rebs going next with the offseason? This is from Nathan Kistler. I think that talk to Brad Lewis. I think everybody is pretty in a consensus that everybody needs to pay attention to offensive lineman Percy Lewis as a potential Ole Miss call up in that situation. I think that you might see a couple more offensive linemen, but they're pretty close to having kind of what they need. Now they're always going to try and find depth to add to position rooms. We saw that last year in the quarterback room. I think this year might be a little bit, there might be like defensive back wise that happens as well. We got Jay Cannon. This is really awesome. If I know Lane, he's not done. Lumberton, Mississippi. Yeah, there's going to be more. Heck of a Christmas miracle. Jake, I don't know if it was a miracle, to be perfectly honest. KMB, what about that former 5-star cornerback from USC? Waiting to see, since they can't visit right now, you're waiting to see if he makes it to campus. I've heard Damani Jackson, and you do like the social sleuthing and all of that, but until he can actually get on campus, it becomes interesting. So that's somebody to pay attention to around January 3rd when that window opens up, where you can visit before that. See where he goes. Does he go to Ole Miss? If that happens, that'll kind of let you know what's going on as well. Brad Bradford from Leakesville, Mississippi. The defense is going to be an absolute nightmare. Merry Christmas, and what a time to be a Rebel. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Squeezed Liberal, who in the portal is not going to want to come play for Pete Golden next to Walter Nolan. This is a big bang for Ole Miss recruiting this year. Yeah, I think Ole Miss is, we talked about Damani Jackson early. Ole Miss is that field corner that you can put on an island out there away from it being a really special unit defensively. I don't think everybody should overlook Tamarian McDonald, who is a star type player. He plays that hybrid role, does it fairly well, actually. You got him, you have Key Lawrence. It'll be interesting to see what the defense looks like as well. D-Bell says, Steve, is that a fresh cut? Yeah, man. I'm trying to keep it tight, man. I got the poly walnuts going along the sides. They're turning really gray. And if I grow out, it gets really, really gray. Yeah, I have to keep it short, or else, believe it or not, I used to have really dark hair, but as you can see, that is changing at the moment. Anna Edwards says, Hottie Toddy and Merry Christmas from Oxford, Mississippi. Merry Christmas, Anna. Jerry Scruggs says, y'all smash the like button. Yeah, I would recommend everybody do that. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Once we hit 6,000 subscribers on YouTube, we are going to start doing remote shows. If we have 6,000 subscribers before the Under Armour game, we're going to do a show Sunday from the Under Armour practice facilities at Wide World of Sports at Disney World. That's what the show Monday will be. But we're going to unlock remote shows at 6,000 YouTube subscribers. Donnie Weiberg says our defense is in beast mode. LFG, Merry Christmas, y'all. Largo, Florida for a few days. They need some offensive linemen. It's not all D. Austin, they won 10 games with the offensive linemen that they essentially had last year. We're not talking about a unit that is deficient. Please do not refer to any unit on this offensive side of the ball that was top 2 or 3 in the Southeastern Conference as deficient. And if you add to the defense getting a little bit better, I'm not 100% sure that a lot of work is needed on the offensive line, other than the fact that they just need to do a little better. D-Bell says, is Nolan the biggest get in program history at the moment? Potentially, but I need to think on that one. Donnie Warburg says, the college nation is going to have to talk about Ole Miss right now. Yeah, Ole Miss just owns Christmas now. They just won Christmas. David Oswald, real tree money, baby. The Jordans are the new Mannings of Ole Miss. Yeah, got to give real tree all the props in the world right now. Kenny McCord's from Ingomar, Mississippi. Donald Harris, let's go from Covington, Tennessee. Robert Veither is Litchfield Park, Arizona. RT says Randall Joyner question. Yeah, it's amazing. He deserves props as well. Todd Shearer, hotty toddy. Let's go Rebels. Merry Christmas from Brandon, Mississippi. Got to give it up to Keith Carter. Yep, he started it all. None of this happens without Keith. Adam Alvis, Birmingham in the house. I took Ole Miss and bowl picks over Penn State. All these teams in the bowls that are the plain pick to win are acting like they don't know what football is. It's ridiculous. Yeah, bowl seasons are notoriously unpredictable. And if Ole Miss goes over there just fired up to win the game, Ole Miss is probably going to win the game. Nathan Hester says, I guess Merry Christmas to Ole Miss. Hotty Toddy Rebels from Boonville, Mississippi. John Campbell, Hotty Toddy from Houston. I don't know if that's Mississippi or Texas, but Merry Christmas and let's go, John. Jake says, big get for y'all. Congrats from a Penn State fan. Thank you very much, Jake. I'm looking forward to, honestly, less than a week from now. That Peach Bowl is going to be a whole lot of fun. Jim Heyman, any money left in the Grove Collective? Yes. That's the problem people have right now. We're not dry. Moby 8 says, Merry Christmas. Waves on Swim says, we're definitely beating Georgia now. HYDR. It's going to be a great game. Kevin Jordan says, what a time to be alive. And that is absolutely true. This blows my mind. J. Keith Garner says, hotty toddy from Sumrall, Mississippi. Billy Jones says, congratulations, Stephen, on the success over the past, 2 years now? Best Homer podcast we have. Thank you very much for that. As it continues to grow, I think, honestly, by April, and that's a conservative estimation, the Locked On Ole Miss podcast will have the most subscribers of all the Ole Miss podcasts and all the Ole Miss shows out there. It'll be one of the most subscribed to shows and podcasts or whatever that's in the entire Ole Miss sphere at the moment. And I'm pretty fired up about that as well. Yeah, it's good. We're counting it down. We know what's going on there. George Blackwell Jr. says, Merry Christmas to all Ole Miss fans from Collinsville, Mississippi. Pratt Rogers. Everybody knows Pratt. Congratulations, buddy. Welcome to the live stream. Cheesy Crust Pizzas from Moss Point, Mississippi. Hottie damn toddy. Facebook user, go get the natty in 24. Edward Penn, HYDR. Dugout Reb, hotty toddy from Madison, Mississippi. Martin Kell, hotty toddy and Merry Christmas from Brandon, Mississippi. What are fans supposed to wear to the Peach Bowl? Red. It's a red game. So Ole Miss fans need to wear red. What I want to have happen in that game, and this is the week where we're going to find out. The uniform reveal is probably Thursday, might be Wednesday, but I want a color game. I want Ole Miss to wear their powder blue helmets, their red jerseys, and their gray pants. Full traditional, or as traditional as Ole Miss can get to go against Penn State wearing the white helmets, the navy jerseys, and the white pants. I think it will look amazing. All of Penn State's fans are going to be in the stadium wearing white, and yes, they travel extremely well. So don't be surprised when there's a lot of white in that stadium. But then you have the red for Ole Miss. I think that would be pretty fantastic, honestly. Greg Ayers is in Russellville, Alabama. Jonathan Bennett, JB from Avalon, Mississippi. As a 29-year-old, this is the most pumped I've ever been for Ole Miss football in my life. I never thought we could be at the level we're in now. The only way is up. Hotty toddy, Jonathan. Now imagine if you're my age. Just saying. I missed all of the Johnny Vault. My first game that I saw in person was Steve Sloan's last. So from there, working forward, I hear you. I feel you, bud. Scott Mims, next NIL target. I do think that I honestly, Damani Jackson, I've slooped that one. I want to see if he visits. They need to get him on campus. We'll see exactly how that goes. Dustin says, Ole Miss football coming in like the Jelly of the Month Club. It's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year round. And also, Dustin, the timing on that is pretty fantastic. Either you just watch Christmas Vacation or it just works. So hotty toddy and Merry Christmas from Tupelo. Uncle Buck, me and my pops are watching from Aiken, South Carolina. This is a massive get for us. Go Rebels, baby, hotty toddy. I think that might be the Langleys. Big fans of the show, big friends of the show. Got a Facebook user from Hamilton, Mississippi. Pat Terrell is from Farmington, Illinois. Jordan Sip is from Horn Lake, Mississippi. Chips are all in for a 2024 Natty run. Willis says, now we got to focus on the Peach Bowl, win the game, and get the hype building or keep building. Sippy, sip. Such an amazing time to be a Rebel. Tampa Zeke, expletive. I just had a feeling to pull up my laptop and check. Locked on. Hotty freaking toddy from Tampa. Jeffrey Langley, Merry Christmas, Steve, to you and your family and the Ole Miss family. It's going to be a great new year. Yes, Jeffrey. Enjoy the games and everything's going on right now. This is pretty fantastic time. Hotty Toddy 51 is watching in Boonville, Mississippi. Oxford is about to be lit. I might have to get a condo there now from Waves on Swim. Caleb Osborne just got here. We got him from Fulton, Mississippi. Not playing that game. Mississippi Junior College is not playing that game. DW and FL, hotty toddy, all great news. Thanks for coming on live today, Stephen. Yeah, I wasn't going to miss this commitment. I was going to come on live and we were going to have a nice little reaction segment as well. Carla Gate or Legate. I didn't know you were from Simpson County. Good to hear. Mendenhall here. Yes, I am a graduate of McGee High School in 1994. Way back in the 1900s. We deserve this. If you survived the Wes McGriff era, you know what I'm talking about. Gulfport, Mississippi from Still Them Boys. Okay. Now I want you to survive the Ed Orgeron era. There's been some people that's been through some stuff, and everybody, in my opinion, needs to really enjoy what's going on. We're going to have more of a breakdown in tomorrow's show. Whenever we do a Locked On show, if you're going anywhere for Christmas, just know that same time as always, Locked On will have a show going live. You can put that on the car. That's 30 minutes going from one house to the other. You should be fine there. We're going to talk about Walter Nolan. We're going to start talking about Penn State. We're going to start talking about what we learned from Ole Miss. That's the plan for tomorrow's Locked On Ole Miss podcast as well. I have not recorded it yet, so it could be like stream of consciousness and go completely a weird direction. Captain Jim 44 Smith says, see what the 3 points to win over A&M this year led to? Yeah. If A&M makes that kick and A&M wins the game, there's a chance that Jimbo is still the coach. And if Jimbo's still the coach, that means that all of the players are there and Walter Nolan is still sitting on that defensive line. Caleb Osborne says, do you think having all these big name guys, that'll make it easier to recruit out of high school and out of state? Potentially, I think that it's going to get easier with Ole Miss just winning games. If Ole Miss throws up another 10 spot, it's going to get a little bit easier. It's one of those situations. Listen, recruiting is honestly similar to what I go through in this medium. It was a grind to get to my first 1,000 subscribers. I had to work. I had to just work my butt off to get to that point. It felt like I was never going to get there. I was trying to find whoever I could just to subscribe to my show. And then the second 1,000, it was a little easier. The third 1,000, it was a little easier. Now it's at the point where I'm adding 10 to 15 subscribers per day. and just regardless. And recruiting it with success-wise is going to do the same thing. The first really good player is going to be hard to get, but if you string a couple of 10-win seasons in a row, those good players are going to be a little bit easier to come by, if that's my point. I hope I made that. Jordan Sip, Oxford would be named Jackson, Mississippi by this time next year. I think that's taken. Harry Walker says, Merry Christmas, HYDR. D.D. Smith says, Hotty Toddy, HYDR. Not Pete Golden says, what's your way too early starting five? Are you talking about on the defensive line? I think Princely Amamuelen, he's locked in. Tyler Barron is probably locked in there. And then you have at the nose guard, you'll have Walter Nolan, and then you'll have J.J. Pegues. And I think the fifth defensive lineman right now is going to be Jared Ivey. And we'll see exactly what happens. Ole Miss's defensive line right now is nasty and salty. Matthew Irvin, I would lay it all out for Dante Dowden just so State can't have him. I think they're going to try to get Dante Dowden. The fact that Dante visited State before the break and has not committed, that's probably good news for somebody. And it probably is not good news for Mississippi State. Alan Fleury, so what's your way too early starting line on defense? Just did that. H. Burns, great time to be a reb at the Res. Rankin County representing. Greenbrier, Arkansas, Rebels are loving this Christmas Eve. It's going to be a big Christmas Eve. I think Ole Miss fans are going to have a pretty good Christmas at the moment. Bobby Roberts says Hattiesburg in the house. J.L. Crammer, Merry Christmas, away from the holidays, but up here in Illinois. Hope it's not too cold for you, man. James Hall's in Brookhaven, Mississippi. It's a great day to be a true Rebel fan. Merry Christmas, Stephen, to you and your family. Thank you very much for that. Caleb Osborne says, Merry Christmas to all Ole Miss fans and that one Penn State fan on here. Jake says, Merry Christmas from Midland, Texas. Early gift with Nolan. Yes, very good. And by the way, I know they're from like Jipping Springs, Texas, but the country band Midland, I'm all about them at the moment. Roland Morris from Hamilton, Mississippi. Merry Christmas to all Rebel fans. They're rising to the top. Alex Hazelwood says, let's go. Hotty Toddy, gosh almighty, we're fixing to beat everybody from Philadelphia, Mississippi. Tampa Zeke getting Ole Miss fans fully to commit to a look is like herding drunk cats. We need all to show up in red, but they're going to be a faction that show up in any color but red, no matter what. Yeah, that's kind of the way it's always been. But you know what? They've gotten better at that, honestly. Jonathan Garcia, Hotty Toddy. Jacob Walter, Boom Boys is on Rebels. Billy Van, William from New Orleans with my in-laws in Oxford. It's about to be Katie Bar the Door in Oxford. Now you won't have to spend your Christmas waiting on the Nolan shooter drop. Enjoy your Christmas resting day and excited for a Rebels bright future. Howard Ferguson said, my first game was Archie beating Bama in Jackson. Been waiting on this for a long time. Go Rebels from Jackson, Mississippi. Was the first game 70 or 68? I mean, that's probably the question. Ned Schneebly, I'm putting together a suit against the University of Mississippi. You'll be punished before the season starts. Yes, that's what the NCAA is known for, timeliness. Billy Van, we literally just passed Swayze, the vault, when hearing about Nolan. Very exciting. Matthew Brockhurt, if I mispronounced that, I apologize. Austin, Texas, HYDR. Leslie Mosley, when does Ole Miss report to Atlanta? Is kind of an any day type situation. Penn State's already there. William Bowles, do you think Ole Miss would get any players on February National Signing Day watching from Smyrna, Tennessee? Yeah, moved down here from Smyrna, Tennessee. That's pretty cool. I honestly, I think the February thing, if they sign anybody, it'll be a situation like the kid that they picked up and took a flyer on from Southwest Mississippi Community College, but I'm not thinking of anybody that's just like a star. Does no one surpass Dici as the number one commit? I think so. As far as talent, I think so. Just because you're getting yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit. J. Keith Garner, I was one of your first 1,000 subscribers, if I'm not mistaken. Congratulations, looking for 10,000. Yeah, me too. At this rate, I'm getting about $3,000 per year as we sit right now. I'm potentially going to go over 2 million YouTube views over the course of the first 2 years at the moment. As this thing grows and really takes off, I am just truly appreciative of everybody that tunes in to listen to me just blather on about Ole Miss sports. David Gibson, are you ready? Andre Morris, Merry Christmas from Navarre, Florida. Walter Meek, let's go. He's from Eupora, Mississippi. Christopher Scott, host that CFP home game in the Jackson Memorial Stadium. Just kidding. LOL, hotty toddy, and Merry Christmas. The Walk of Champions is going to look like a military parade next year with all the weapons. You're not wrong. Billy Van says, Merry Christmas to you and yours from our tribe. We need love. Locked On Ole Miss. Thank you very much, Billy, for that. Andy Jaffe, the signee. Hey, listen to this, Andy. Since you're listening to the show, I will say this to where you can hear it. And this has been my take that I've had for essentially the whole time that you were even being looked at by Ole Miss. When you were committed to Wake Forest, this was my take. Andy Jaffe is the type of kid that nobody's going to pay attention to. And by the time he's a junior, he was going to be an all ACC guy. I think that all SEC is a possibility for Andy Jaffe. A super athlete, great kid. Thank you very much for coming on the show early this year. But he says they report Monday. Wayne Priest says, hotty toddy from Saltillo, Mississippi. Trip Graham from Austin, Texas. All my Longhorn friends are getting nervous. They should. Bobby Roberts, let's add some more stadium seats. Mac Baker, hotty freaking toddy, Ole Miss. Welcome to Ole Miss, Walter Nolan. Henry Walker, hotty toddy from Gulfport. Merry Christmas. Howard Ferguson, 1970 was that game in Jackson, Mississippi. I think Archie put on a clinic that day. That's 6 years before my time, but I've heard stories about it. Coach Christopher Paul, this is Chris Paul's dad, says it's a wrap. Thanks for watching, Coach. Do appreciate that. Cody Boyette, now number 13 in overall recruiting rankings. Think there's a chance of landing a top 10 class with what they're doing in the transfer portal. I don't want to say there's not a chance, honestly. Caden Dempsey says, bro, what a Christmas present this was. Hotty toddy, damn it. Jeff Howell, hotty toddy from Layton, Utah. Jackson Dartland can't be happier on this Christmas Eve. And Jeff, are you in more of a BYU area or a Utah area? I'm curious about that. Dart going to have to change his name from Jackson to Machine Gun. Joel Nichols, Merry Christmas, and hotty toddy from Tupelo, Mississippi. Caleb Osborne says we definitely need a bigger stadium. And Chris Paul from Cordell, Georgia. It's a wrap. So very much, I want everybody to enjoy this Christmas Eve with their family. Tomorrow morning, there will be a Locked On Ole Miss podcast like there always is. It should be a lot of fun indeed. I hope everybody has fun with what's going on. It's fun for me to do this. It's fun for all of you to tune in, I hope. And we will see you tomorrow. Anyway, take care. Hotty toddy. And we got it.